I'm telling Babylon. I'm telling Babylon. I'm telling Babylon. You let everybody get a turn. When the angels come, I'ma scream, let her burn. You let everybody get a ride. Did you really think God was gonna let it slide? You let everybody get a turn. When the angels come, I'ma scream, let her burn. You let everybody get a ride. Did you really think God was gonna let it slide? Her name is Babylon. I call her Babs for short. She has a lot of lovers. She lets them pass her port. She has a love affair with every foreign nation. She has a favorite wine. Its name is fornication. She has a purple robe. She has a pearly necklace. And if you worship Caesar, she'll give you worldly blessings. She's insatiable. She cannot hide her passion. Last week, somebody said she rides a dragon. I know it's crazy, but the question is why she had to put a crown upon its 7 heads. And it's even deeper. I had to peep the madness. She made war with the saints that tried to keep commandments. And since she killed the righteous and won't let me be, when she burns, it won't be from an STD. Bodies everywhere, both man and beast. And on that day, the birds are gonna have a feast. You let everybody get a turn. When the angels come, I'ma scream, let her burn. You let everybody get a ride. Did you really think God was gonna let it slide? You let everybody get a turn. When the angels come, I'ma scream, let her burn. You let everybody get a ride. Did you really think God was gonna let it slide? Show me the finest girl. Babs is just as pretty. Her name is Babylon. The girl is such a mystery. Yeah, she's been that way since we were little kids. She nicknamed me Mark like I was 666. She said, you want my number? I said, you high as hell. She said, you need my number or you can't buy or sell. She said, take my number. I know that I can't make you, but I'm espoused to Christ and I'm staying faithful. Isaiah had a vision. He saw the elevation. Jesus preached the gospel. John had a revelation. Her lovers hated Babs, so they burned her up. What's upside down? The Lord could always turn it up. You let everybody get a turn. When the angels come, I'ma scream, let her burn. You let everybody get a ride. Did you really think God was gonna let it slide? You let everybody get a turn. When the angels come, I'ma scream, let her burn. You let everybody get a ride. Did you really think God was gonna let it slide? I'm telling Babylon. I'm telling Babylon. I'm telling Babylon.
I'm telling Babylon. I'm telling Babylon. I'm telling Babylon.
I'd rather have iron than silver and gold. But just give me a savior, my life he can hold. Oh, I'd rather have iron than silver and gold.
Look how far the Lord brought him. I'm still in awe, cause look at how all them laws taught him. I should be upstate fit and going into the autumn. I needed salvation from self, all praises the Lord saw him. Now I'm moving different like my man Ace. I'm good now cause I can finally understand grace. I'm staying down it no matter how long the plan takes. My hands to the plow, it's only right that I landscape. I'm not concerned what a man makes. I'm full speed on this road in this vehicle, got no handbrakes. It's a rocky road and takes skills. I pray Yahweh Shai never let go of the wheel. That's what I call cruise control. Cause without them you can lose control until you lose your soul. Instead of chasing paper, try to make the fold. That's why I'd rather have Yahweh than my way to go. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
No riches untold. I'd rather have
rather have Yahweh Shai. That's the only name I think of when I prophesy. Now look at when they come to my peers, I put my pride aside and put the Most High over things I used to idolize. Money, women, the S550s. Used to drive Chef in a frenzy. Look how I was forming all them wicked and weapons that was against me. But Most High came and he rinsed me immensely. Now I'm lifting my hands in a grateful way to the hills where my help come from day to day. That's the source of my strength, I'm not ashamed to say. Look how you took my crooked paths and you made them straight. Alpha and Omega, far from a dog. I'm on fire like the summer, far from the fall. If there ever was a problem, you the proper call. I choose Abba because I know this kingdom got the fall. Y'all.
Riches and gold. I'd rather have Abba than silver and gold. But just give me a savior. My life he can hold. I'd rather have Abba than silver and gold.
I'd rather have Abba. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I'd rather have Abba. I'd rather have Abba.
Shalom, shalom, family, shalom. Most High Christ bless y'all. Today, try not to take up too much of y'all time. Fairly simple class, just kind of a chance of reflection, you know what I mean? Self-discipline and control, something that we all, and I'm going to say all just because, I think it's safe to say, all of us have to discipline ourselves and learn to control ourselves. You know what I mean? Mind, body, and spirit. So we'll get into that. This class has a lot of definitions, because we have to understand what we're talking about when it comes to discipline and control and, such. You know what I mean? All right. So we'll get right into it. Okay. So first thing, self-discipline, right? If I can pull it up. Can you see that on my screen or no? Okay. Self-discipline. All right, the definition of self-discipline is the ability to control one's feelings and overcome one's weaknesses, the ability to pursue what one thinks is right despite temptations to abandon it. You see? So that's one form of self-discipline. All right. Salakia. Now, if we go to the etymology of self-discipline, etymology of self-discipline is ability to restrain or guide or control oneself. Okay? So ability to restrain or guide to control oneself. So we got a dictionary definition and we have an etymology definition. The main thing is restraint. And as we go through this, we'll see that a lot of things come with restraint, right? Now, the discipline that I'm speaking of, it's not referring to this. We know that there's another type of discipline, right? So if we go to Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 10, Proverbs chapter 15, verse 10 says, correction is grievous unto him that forsaketh the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. Now, if we go into the word correction, the word correction is discipline, right? Discipline, chastening, discipline, right? But we're not talking about this type of discipline. We're not talking about if you was a kid and you did something wrong, you're going to get a whooping. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about down here, when we go to the Strongs, it says restraint or bond. Or even over here where it says doctrine. This is the type of discipline we're talking about. You see, this is the type of discipline that we want. This is the type of discipline we're looking for. Another one that we're not talking about, and the reason I'm bringing these up is because when you're reading the word discipline, correction, or certain things that we're going to go over, I don't want you to have the same idea in your mind that is speaking of the same thing, right? So this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 2, verse 30. Says, in vain have I smitten your children. They received no correction. Your own sword hath devoured your prophets like a destroying lion, right? So that correction, like we've seen, goes into discipline, you see? So the same word, right? Correction. When it comes to correction, it has to do with a form of discipline or chastening, you see? And that's fine, We'll get another one on that. Proverbs 3 and verse 11 says, my son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. You see, so we understand this type of discipline, right? We understand this is a chastening, this is a correction, that type of discipline, right? But like I said, we're going to go into a different type of discipline. It's more, uniform, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Keeps yourself together, keeps yourself in order, right? Keeps yourself in order. Okay. Let's go to another word, right? Submit. Submit, the etymology of submit is place oneself under control of another, yield oneself, become submissive. Yield, lower, lay down, put under, or reduce. And the reason I'm using submit is because to submit is a form of putting yourself in a disciplinary way, you see. So to be submissive is, you know what I mean? You have to be disciplined within yourself to be submissive. You know what I mean? I know a lot of brothers come into the truth and be like, their wives are not submissive or so on and so forth, right? But they have to learn to do that. They have to put themselves in subjection first. You know what I mean? They got to put themselves in subjection first. Let's get another definition of submit. Accept, this is the dictionary definition. Accept or yield to a superior force or to the authority or will of another person. Now, when you go to similarities, you look at all these different similarities: bow, conform, consent, agree. One of the similarities is to endure. You see, we're told in scripture to endure to the end. You know what I'm saying? So we have to focus on ourselves, make sure that we are putting ourselves in this submissive place unto the Most High. You see what I'm saying? That only comes with humility and discipline and control. You see what I'm saying? We have to know what we're doing. You're not just going to yield to the Most High and you're just a willy-nilly, free-spirited, I walk with the earth type person. That's not going to happen. You see what I'm saying? That's not going to happen. All right? Salakia, one moment. Salakia, I didn't know you guys couldn't see that. All right, so submit. Salakia, for you guys not being able to see that definition, let me put it up again. Okay. All right, so accept or yield to a superior force or authority or will of another person, right? And like I said, its similarity is to endure. You see, so we need to be able to endure in order to in order to follow the Most High properly, right? But we have to be disciplined within ourselves. You see, so submission comes with that. So, sisters, when Scripture tells you to submit to your husbands, all this goes along with it. You know what I mean? That's a form of your own self-discipline that you are submitting to your husband. You see? Okay. Let's go to another one. What do I want? Where is it at? Oh, that was not there. Okay. There we go. To be humble, right? To be humble, submissive, respectful, lowly in matter, modest, not self-asserting, asserting, obedient. You see, so humility comes with this. You see, so we have to be humble in itself, right? We have to be humble as well. And then here's another one. Order. Etymology of order, right? Etymology of order is body of persons living under a religious discipline. You see what I'm saying? Us in Israel, if we're in order, right, we know to follow law, statutes, and commandments. We know to have faith in Yahushua, so on and so forth, right? That is a religious discipline, a body of persons living under a religious discipline. Even the, Christian church, you know what I'm saying? They might sin all the time and stuff like that, but then they get up and go to church and pay their tithes, you know what I'm saying? They fall in a certain order, Muslims, so on and so forth, right? There's a certain order to this, and it's a religious discipline. You see what I'm saying? You're disciplined enough to get up and go to church. You're disciplined enough to sit in class, so on and so forth. You see? So we have to keep all these things in mind, because all of them have similarities, right? And here is a dictionary definition of order. It is the arrangement or disposition of people or things and related to each other according to a particular sequence, pattern, or method. You see? Let's get another one. Given authoritative direction or instruction to do something. This is order, right? You have to be in order. The Most High requires order. You know what I'm saying? This is why there's certain people in place. You have elders and captains and officers and so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? You have a certain order when it comes to the congregation of the Most High. You know what I mean? You have a certain order. And this is what we have to follow, right? So we know already that we have self-discipline, which has to deal with restraint, submit, which has to deal with under control or, following order. You have humility. You have order itself. All of these have similar definitions, right? All of this goes under one category goes under the category of self-discipline and control, right? You have to be in control. You have to have discipline in order to do so. You see? So just like if we go here, Ephesians 5:22 says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord, right? That wife would be in order. That wife submits. So she holds her tongue. You know what I'm saying? She listens to her husband, so on and so forth, right? So there's some sort of restraint there. There's a discipline to her doing her duty as a wife. You see what I'm saying? For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Yahushua is the head of the church and he is the savior of the body. Jump down to 25. Husbands, love your wives, even as Hamashiach also loved the church and gave himself for it. You see, so that husband's duty, he has to be in order as well. He has to submit to something as well. So he has to have a certain type of discipline within himself as well. You know what I mean? A lot of people find it hard to put themselves in these positions. You know, they're so used to living a certain way, right? How do you know if you are disciplined? You know what I'm saying? How do you know? Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. Examine yourselves, whether ye be in faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Yahushua Mashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. When you examine yourself, you have to be honest. I tell people this all the time. You got to be honest with yourself. You cannot examine yourself and be like, oh, no, I don't think I do that. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I'm like that. I don't think I'm this type of person. You know what I mean? You can't do that. You know, otherwise, so like, y'all don't need to see me. Otherwise, you know, you're just going to go about things in the same manner all the time. You know what I mean? So that means you lack discipline. You know, you lack discipline. If you lack discipline, if you lack control, then you're going to be open to do anything that you want to do, whether it be against the Most High or not. You know, you're going to be open to it. You're going to be okay with it. You know, you might go to your family's house to celebrate their birthdays, you know what I'm saying, and fall into idolatry. You might go, you might break the Sabbath because you have relatives visiting and stuff like that because you don't have no type of discipline. Salakia. Yeah, because you don't have no type of discipline. You know? Order says that it's an orderly arrangement or disposition of people, you know, in relation to sequence and patterns and methods, right? An orderly arrangement. Like when we come together for a feast day and everyone is on the same accord, you know what I mean? And you guys plan it out. You go to the park and stuff like that. That's an orderly arrangement. You see, if everyone wanted to do their own thing, they would never fall in order. They would never fall in proper order. You know, they would never. Here's an orderly arrangement for you. 1 Corinthians 11. 1 Corinthians 11 and verse 3 says, "But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God." You see what I'm saying? If there was no order, it would become anarchy. You see what I'm saying? You would have Christ trying to be the Most High. You would have the woman trying to be the man. And we see this today in society. You see what I'm saying? We see this today in society. A lot of women want to wear the pants. A lot of men want to wear the dress, you know, which is out of order. You know what I mean? Some men probably want to wear the dress because they don't want to they don't want to be disciplined enough to take on the burdens of the world or take on the fiery darts for their wife and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Some men don't want to deal with that. Some women are so used to being alone, or they had a certain type of upbringing to where now they're the man of their house in their head. You know what I'm saying? But that's out of order. So who are you submitting to? You know what I'm saying? You can't be out of order and say that you submit to the Most High. Nah. Like I said, all these things go together because all of these things have to deal with restraint, humility. You know what I'm saying? All of these things go together. So when we look at these things, you can sum it up. It's an umbrella, you know what I'm saying? Self-discipline or self-control. You know what I'm saying? You can sum it up with those words because the definitions, by definition, they all go together. Let's get another one. Job. Let's go to Job. Job chapter 1, verse 7 and 8 says, "And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Satan answered the Lord and said, Doth Job fear God for naught?" So if you, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you read into this, right, Satan is asking for permission. He's not just going to touch Job on his own. He's asking for permission. You see what I'm saying? This is an orderly arrangement. You know what I mean? I know some people be like, oh, well, Satan went against God and they fought and all this and whatever. You know what I'm saying? But if you actually look into the detail, he asked for permission. He wasn't just moving on his own. He was disciplined. This angel, so to speak, was disciplined enough to ask for permission. Even the angel that came to the Lord for the priest of Ahab, he asked to put a lying tongue on him, a lying spirit on him. You see what I'm saying? He asked for permission. There's an order to all this. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, all of this stuff goes together. You know what I mean? All of this stuff goes together. Let's see. Ezekiel, let me see if this is what I want. No, I don't want that. Oh, wait, Salakia. I pressed the wrong thing. Okay. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 27 and verse 21. It says, "In the tabernacle of the congregation without the veil, which is before the testimony, Aaron and his sons shall order it from evening to morning before the Lord." Right? Shall order what? They had a certain duty. You see what I'm saying? In the tabernacle, they had a certain duty. So when we go to order in the Hebrew, it's arak, to arrange, set or put or lay in order, set in array, prepare. You see what I'm saying? You see how so even the arrangement that they have has to be in order. The arrangement that the priest had to be in order, right? Now, it said that it also directs, right? The definitions that we went over says that some of these things direct. You know what I mean? Order is direction. So let's go to Psalms 119 and 133. Psalms 119 and 133, it says, "Order my steps in thy word, and let not any iniquity have dominion over me." If we are in order, the things that the Most High laid out for us, law, statutes, and commandments, the example and the teachings that Yahushua gave to us, the letters that Paul wrote, you know what I'm saying? If we follow those and we follow those and we fall in order, then our steps are directed, they're guided. You know what I'm saying? They're laid out for us. It's hard for you to just veer off if you continue to stay in order. You see what I'm saying? And that's where the discipline comes in. You know what I mean? You might want to go hang out on the Sabbath, because I don't know, like I said, family's in town or whatever. You might want to go to the club or something that you normally don't do. You know what I'm saying? But you keep yourself in order because you're walking through these steps that was laid out for you. So you discipline yourself. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said all these definitions go together, because if you stay in order, that means you are putting yourself in discipline. You know what I'm saying? Paul says, matter of fact, let me get that. 1 Corinthians 9. 1 Corinthians 9 and 27. It says, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. You see what I'm saying? Paul put himself in order. Paul kept himself disciplined, because we all know what Paul used to do. You know what I mean? But once he found out the truth, once he knew how to walk, he kept himself in order. He kept himself disciplined. He kept himself grounded, because he knew he could go off. That goes for any of us. You see what I'm saying? That goes for any of us. We can go off. We can slip. We can make mistakes. You know what I mean? But we got to know how to pick ourselves back up, right? So us being in order and us having that discipline for ourselves, it's less likely for you to do so. You know what I mean? It's less likely for you to just go off, because you have these things set in place. You have this submission set in place, this humility set in place, order set in place, this discipline for yourself set in place. You know what I mean? Just like we read, you have to examine yourself, and you got to be honest with yourself, so that way you don't fall subject to these types of to any type of situation that's out of order. You see what I'm saying? Like, just because the Most High don't smack you right away doesn't mean it's not going to happen. You know, he just gives you that chance and that opportunity to come back and make amends. You know what I mean? We have to remember this. But the only way we can remember it is through discipline, right? That made me think of a scripture, but yeah, I'll bring it out later. So, in order for us to gain wisdom, knowledge, understanding, you know what I mean? When you're studying every day, like if a person is reading their scriptures, 2 chapters a day, 3, 4, whatever the case may be, you know what I mean? Like, you're disciplined, right? When you go to work every day, day in, day out, be on time, listen to your boss, stuff like that. That's discipline. If you can discipline yourself for another person, you should be able to discipline yourself for the Most High. You see what I'm saying? You should be able to be in order for the Most High, because you be in order at work. You should be able to be in order at home for your husband or for your wife, because you do it at work. You do it for Esau. Why wouldn't you do it for the Most High? You see what I'm saying? Why wouldn't you do it for the Most High? Let's get the book of... No, you know what? I don't want that. Let's go to another definition. And I think this definition is... this definition right here is pretty important. If I can pull it up. Okay, there we go. All right, sober, to be sober, right? Etymology of sober is moderate in desires or actions, habitually temperate, restrained. You see why I said that all these definitions go together? You see, restrained and temperate, right? Especially abstaining from strong drink. Also, to be calm, to be quiet, not overcome by emotion. I bet nobody really thinks of to being sober as not being overcome by emotion. You see what I'm saying? Let's drop down. Not drunk, temperate, moderate, sensible. You see what I'm saying? So when you think of being sober, a lot of people think of being sober as, just not being drunk. You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, you don't want to sit there and be a drunkard. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't live your life like a wino. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that. But this is not really what we're going into when it comes to self-discipline. I mean, of course, discipline yourself so you're not a drunk, so you're not a wino. You shouldn't be going in and day out, especially as children of the Most High. You definitely shouldn't be going in, day out, getting drunk all the time and can't control yourself. You know what I mean? You shouldn't do that. But this is going a little bit deeper, right? Because like we said, this is going into restraint and temperate and being calm and quiet and not overcome by emotions. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people ain't going to think of being sober to learn how to deal with your emotions. You know what I'm saying? Nobody thinks of that. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I mean. And this is what this is speaking of, right? You want to be in control. You want to be disciplined enough to not have these things overtake you. Your temper, you know what I'm saying? Your emotions, so on and so forth, right? You want to be in that type of thing. Also, being sober has to do with following doctrine. You see what I'm saying? And I'll show you that. We'll go to the book of Isaiah, chapter 29. And verse 9. It says, "Stay yourselves and wonder. Cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink." What is this talking about? This is talking about doctrine, right? A lot of us get tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. You know what I mean? That's not being sober. You see, when you are thinking of being sober, you're of sound mind. You see what I'm saying? You're of sound mind. So Isaiah is telling you that this is not talking about wine. You see? Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 1. 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. "For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind." So when we go to sound mind, it says self-control and moderation. You see? Self-control and moderation. Now let me get another one. H4998, right? This is the Hebrew word na'ah. Did I type that in right? I don't think so. Salakia, G499H. Okay, so Fran. All right. Says of sound mind, sane in one sense, curbing one desires and impulse, self-control, and temperate. You see what I'm saying? So remember, we just seen, and to be sober, it was temperate and restraint, and it's showing you self-control. You see what I'm saying? To be sober. You see what I'm saying? This is a form of being sober, temperate, self-control, of sound mind. When you see sound mind in the Bible, it's referring to these things. You know what I'm saying? Like we can try to say like of sound mind, like, our minds are clear and so on and so forth, but it's really talking about self-control and temperate. Like I said, all these go together. All of these mention restraint, temperate, self-control, discipline. You know what I'm saying? All of these mention the same thing. You see? All of these mention the same thing. Oops, Salakia. Let's go back. Let's go Isaiah. No, let's go Jeremiah. Jeremiah 57. Jeremiah 57 and verse 7. "Then the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled, and went forth out of the city by night, but by the way of the gate between the two walls, which was by the king's garden." Is that what I want? Oh, Salakia, I typed in the wrong chapter. Salakia, y'all. 51. There we go. Salakia. Jeremiah 51:7 says, Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore, the nations are mad. You see what I'm saying? And it's not talking about mad like angry. It's talking about like crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's talking about crazy. See, but this is where Israel goes wrong a lot of times. You know, we fall into temptation. We fall into the way of the world. You see what I'm saying? So we drink of that cup of Babylon. See what I'm saying? And we're drunken off of her wine, like I said. So being sober doesn't necessarily have to do with you being a drunkard, you know what I'm saying? Or drinking tequila, you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily have to do with that. It has to do with doctrine. So when it comes to doctrine, you have to be of sound mind, just like it said in Timothy, or sober-minded. You know what I mean? Or sober-minded. Let's get one more on that. Revelation 17 in verse 2 says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. Most High always calls us adulteresses and stuff like that, right? Whenever we step away from him. All right? Whenever we worship other gods, we fall into the way of the world, so on and so forth, right? And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. You see, it's funny because the first song that I played before we started this, that's what Priest was talking about. You see what I'm saying? A lot of our people get drunk off the wine of the world, off of Babylon, right? Let's go to verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. What is that golden cup? That's the wine that some people drink of. You see what I'm saying? So if you're drinking of the wine of the way of the world, of the way of Babylon, then you're not of sober mind. You're not of sound mind. You see what I'm saying? You put off discipline. You put off order. You put off submission and humility. You know what I'm saying? You putting all of that away and going against the Most High to do so because you want to be drunk off of the wine of the world. Let's go to Isaiah 28. And, you know, we all know this, you know what I'm saying? We all use these precepts and stuff like that, right? But what is it really talking about, right? Verse 1 says, woe to the crown of pride, to the drunkards of Ephraim, whose glorious beauty is a fading flower, which are on the head of the fat valleys, of them that are overcome with wine. You see, it's speaking of the same thing, right? Let's drop down to verse 7. But they also have erred through wine, and through strong drink are out of the way. The priests and the prophets have erred through strong drink. They are swallowed up of wine. They are out of the way through strong drink. They err in vision. They stumble in judgment. For all tables are full of vomit and filthiness, so that there is no place clean. Whom shall he teach knowledge? There you go, right there. That shows you right there what this wine is. Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? There you go. Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. You see what I'm saying? So this is going into this wine. You know, so with these definitions, right, that we just went through, all of them have restraint in them. You see, if you're an alcoholic, you have no restraint. You know what I'm saying? You have no restraint. You know, you can't drink. I like that. I like that. You know what I'm saying? You can't drink with everybody. I like that. Yeah, can't. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, you have to discipline yourself and know who you can and can't drink with. You see, you gotta discipline yourself, right? Now we've seen that one of the definitions was sound mind, right? Let's go to Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 4. And verse 7. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7 says, "But the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober, and watch unto prayer." See, so scripture is telling you to be sober, right? And we just went through what sober is, right? To be of sound mind. You see, to exercise self-control. You know what I mean? To exercise self-control. Let's see. Let's get that, matter of fact. Let's get self-control. All right, this definition of self-control: the ability to control oneself, in particular, one's emotions and desires, or the expression of them in one's behavior, especially in difficult situations. We are all going to be tempted. We're all going to be tried. We're all going to be put through the fire. You see what I'm saying? But you have to have self-control, you know what I'm saying, or discipline, lack thereof, in order to endure, just like we seen with submission, right? In order to endure, you got to have these things: control, you see what I'm saying, and discipline, right? If you go to the similarities, self-restraint, self-discipline. You see what I'm saying? All of these things are the same. We have to put ourselves, like Paul said, we have to put ourselves under subjection in order to follow this, right? Another similarity, temperance. We've seen that in the definition of sober. We've seen that in multiple definitions. You see what I'm saying? To be tempered. You know what I'm saying? You have to learn how to control yourself. You know what I mean? And like I said, it comes with examining yourself, and it comes with being honest about your examination. Other people can point things out to you, you know what I mean? But who listens? Nobody wants to hear their flaws or their faults. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to. I mean, me personally, I do, because if I know them, then I can correct them. You see what I'm saying? But everyone doesn't think like that. A lot of people might think it's an attack automatically if you point out another person's faults or flaws. You see what I'm saying? But this is why self-examination is required. This is why that is important. And when you're examining yourself, you have to be honest. You see? You got to be honest. Let's get something else. Let's see. What I want. See, because we say, oh, I follow the Most High, but we have bad tempers. Follow the Most High, but you can't control yourself. Follow the Most High, but you lack discipline. You know what I mean? Like you don't study like you should. You don't pray like you should. You don't teach like you should. You don't give out the word like you should. You see what I'm saying? So you lack discipline or control thereof, right? So let's see what this says. Let's go to Galatians chapter 5. And we're going to go to the fruit of the Spirit, fruits of the Spirit, right? Fruits of the Spirit says 5:22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, just like we've seen how you endure, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. You see what I'm saying? So all the definitions that we was just bringing out: self-control, sober, order, humility, submissive, discipline, all of those go back to like temperance, right? If you can't control your temper, if you can't control yourself and your emotions, how are you going to fall in order? How are you going to be in order? You know what I mean? If it's like, I can understand if it's like a Proverbs 24 type thing. You know what I mean? A just man falls 7 times, right? I could understand that. But if it's like all the time, you know what I mean? If you can't control yourself on like drinking, you know what I'm saying? Like we know that there's nothing wrong with drinking, right? But if you can't control yourself and you do it all the time, if you can't limit yourself, if you can't, you know what I mean, like discipline yourself to be a certain way about it. Like if you know you're a drunk and fly off the handle all the time, maybe you should give yourself some boundaries. You know what I'm saying? But nobody does that to themselves. You know what I'm saying? If you have a bad temper and your wife makes you mad every time she says something, maybe you need to learn how to deal with yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because it ain't just a bad temper. You see what I'm saying? It ain't just a bad temper, because you might have a temper, right? But it says to be temperate. You see what I'm saying? Which means you learn to control it. You don't have to fly off the handle. You know what I mean? All of these things go together. All of these things. And like I said, this is something that, you know, I'm pointing out to all of Israel, because I mean, even me, sometimes I slip, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I've had a bad temper most of my life, you know what I'm saying? And I've learned to put that under subjection. You know what I mean? Because like we said, order, the definition of order, it's an orderly arrangement, right? What was it? A religious discipline, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that, right? So following the Most High, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments keeps me bound, keeps me in order, it keeps me safe. You know what I'm saying? It's for our own good, right? It's for our own good. You know what I mean? Like if you just lack discipline, then that means you can go out to the streets, and if someone does something wrong to you, you just fly off the handle and they kill you. Especially nowadays, you know what I'm saying? Whether it be young cats or whether it be police or whoever, you know what I'm saying? So you got to learn to restrain yourself. You see what I'm saying? You see how all these definitions have the same words in them? Restrain, temperance, you know what I'm saying? Emotion, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. You know, all of them have the same definitions because they all mean the same. So when you're reading it in scripture, you understand what it's actually talking about. If it's telling you to be sober, it's telling you to be of sound mind, it's telling you to be disciplined or controlled or humble or to be in order. You see what I'm saying? All of these have the same definitions, the same meanings. You know what I mean? So we got to keep that in mind. Don't think, that's why I was giving y'all etymology definitions and dictionary definitions. You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the definitions don't really go together all the time. If you look up sober in the dictionary, rather than like we did in the etymology dictionary, if you look it up in the regular dictionary, it's going to talk about alcohol. You see what I'm saying? It's going to refer to alcohol or maybe even drugs. You see what I'm saying? But we're talking about the sober that the Bible speaks of being of sound mind and restraint and temperate. You see what I'm saying? Not impulsive. Sometimes I'm impulsive. You know what I'm saying? So I'm impulsive. Like I'm impulsive when it comes to a lot of things, even when it comes to buying something. Like my rib, if I see something, my rib be like, yeah, you're going to buy that. Because she knows that I'm impulsive, you know what I'm saying? And I'll just grab it. You know what I mean? But we got to learn to put that in subjection. We got to learn to control that. Got to learn to control that. Let's get another one. Let's go Titus chapter 1. Titus chapter 1 and verse 8 says, but a lover of hospitality, a lover of good men, sober, just, holy, and temperate. See how many times the Bible tells you to do that? You know what I mean? Because how can you be some angry, just an angry quick-tempered, not in your right mind person, you know what I'm saying, and then you trying to give somebody the word, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna fly off the handle as soon as they disagree with you. You know what I mean? You're gonna fly off the handle. It's been times, and I ain't gonna lie. I'm gonna use me for an example. It's been times where things might get frustrating. You know what I mean? You know, it's been times where like me and Captain Zakaria been debating with other people, and Captain texts me in the background like, you know, chill out. You know what I'm saying? Because he could see the frustration building, and I'm starting to lose it. You know what I mean? So I gotta now when he says it, then I gotta I gotta grab myself. You know what I mean? I gotta grab a hold of myself and put myself back in order. Discipline myself so that I don't do that. You know what I mean? So we gotta be aware of how we move, and we gotta be aware of the things that we do and how we're gonna respond. You know what I'm saying? And if you know you're gonna respond a certain way, then you need to examine yourself and see how you can change that. You know what I'm saying? You got to see how you can change that. You got to put yourself in subjection. And putting yourself in subjection has to do with control and discipline. You know what I mean? I don't think our people, and I ain't even going to just say, you know, us lovely people of Israel, you know what I'm saying? I'll say even our people in the way of the world, you know, I don't think they know how to do that. A lot of us was never taught that. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us was never taught to discipline ourselves or to control ourselves. You know what I mean? Like I grew up and I seen my pops lose it, you know what I mean, on multiple occasions. You know what I mean? So as a child, you think that this is what you're supposed to do and this is how you're supposed to react. You see what I'm saying? But nah. When you get to reading scripture and you see how the Most High wants you to be in order and how he wants you to act, then it's a whole different outlook. It's a whole different ballgame. You see? That's a whole different ballgame. Most High is like, nah, you need to put some restraint on yourself. You know? Let's get the book of James. Book of James, chapter 1 and verse. Whoops. James chapter 1 and verse 20 says, for the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. You see what I'm saying? So all these definitions telling you to restrain yourself and to be temperate and stuff like that. The Most High don't even like the wrath of man. It's not righteousness to him. You know what I mean? It's not righteousness to him. You know, and we got to keep these things in mind when we're trying to please the Most High. We can't step out of bounds and think that we're still in order. You know what I mean? Like, you can't step out of bounds, think you're still in order because you keep the Sabbath. Think that you're still in order because you keep it feast day. Think that you're still in order because you just celebrated new moon. You know what I mean? But you live terribly. You got a bad temper, mistreat your wife or your husband. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got no type of restraint, no type of boundaries. You let your emotions take over you. You can't think that you're doing the right thing. You know what I'm saying? Can't think that you're doing the right thing. Let's see. What else does it say? Let's go Proverbs 25. Proverbs 25 and verse 28 says, he that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. You can't rule over your own spirit. You see what I'm saying? That's why I said you lack discipline. You lack control. You're not sober-minded, sound of mind. No humility, no submission, no order. You see, like I said, you see how all of these things go together? See how all of them go together? You lack that if you can't control your spirit. You lack all of those things if you can't control your spirit. You know what I mean? Let me pull some up. See if I want this scripture actually. So I was just thinking of something. Salakia. Yeah, we could go there. Okay. Let's go to Titus 2:2. This is just to touch back on what we've been talking about. Titus 2:2 says that the aged man be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience. Man, those things right there are hard to do. You know what I mean? Those things are hard to do. I'm not saying that it's easy. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that it's easy, but that's why I said we got to examine ourselves, because it's not easy, especially if you grew up a certain way. You know what I mean? This is all you're used to. You know what I mean? It's all you're used to. So it's hard. This is a walk. You know what I'm saying? This is a walk. This is a lifestyle. This is the way we are supposed to live. You know what I mean? So we have to learn to get a hold of ourselves. We have to learn to discipline ourselves. You know, let's see. Let's go 1 Corinthians 10. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 10. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 13 and 14 says, there hath no temptation taken you but such as is common to man. You see, so the things that we deal with, everyone deals with. We just have to learn to deal with it in a different way. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry, right? Flee from idolatry. A lot of our people, I'll say, worship money. You know what I'm saying? It's a form of idolatry, right? Says the root of all evil is the love of money, right? Love of money is the root of all evil, right? For the love of money will cause you to do a lot of terrible things, right? So if you love money that much, where would your self-control be? You wouldn't have none. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, people have past, right? So if you was a drug dealer and you was robbed and you love money, you love the hustle, you love the money, stuff like that. So what's your next step? You know what I mean? You're gonna try to get some get back. You know what I'm saying? So now you done threw control and discipline out the window because of your love of money. You see what I'm saying? So when you fall into idolatry, you don't have none of those things. You don't have no order, no discipline, none of them. All of that stuff goes out the window. Like I said, the Most High gives you a guideline on how to be in order and how to be disciplined. We just have to pay attention to it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has emotions, yes. You know what I mean? But do we have to act on our emotions? No. You could put yourself in check. You see what I'm saying? Put yourself in check. You know? Let's get another one. Psalms chapter 103. I think that's what, chapter 103 and verse 8. Says, the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and plenteous in mercy. You see what I'm saying? If the Most High is giving you an example, there's always an example. You see what I'm saying? So we can't be like, well, the Most High was going to kill us. You know what I'm saying? Nah, but the Most High turned away from it, right? And I'll give you that right now. Exodus, I think that's what it is. Exodus 32 and 11 through 14. Exodus 32 and 11 says, and Moses besought the Lord his God and said, Lord, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, for mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth. Turn from thy fierce wrath, and repent of this evil against thy people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants, to whom thou swearest by thine own self, and saidst unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken I will give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. You see what I'm saying? So the Most High turned away from that. We can do the same thing. He's given us an example. When Yahushua was on the scene, he was giving us examples. You think Yahushua wasn't getting mad? You know he was getting mad. He was flipping tables over and everything. You see what I'm saying? But he had restraint. The Most High just showed you in the book of Exodus, he had restraint. You see what I'm saying? He was able to be tempered. You know what I'm saying? We have to do the same thing. They had a control of themselves. They had discipline of themselves. You see what I'm saying? Most High didn't have to do that. He didn't have to repent for that, but he did. So we have to think the same way. Remember, we have to be of like mind. This is how we become one with Yahushua and the Most High. We have to be like-minded. So we have to have the same type of discipline and restraint. And we got to think of this in our everyday life, in our homes, when we're out and about. You know, if you're at the grocery store and the lady cuts in front of you, whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? We have to think about this all the time. We got to examine ourselves, make sure that we're in order, stay disciplined to the Most High. You see? We have to think about this. David lacked discipline at one point, right? When it came to Bathsheba. He lacked discipline. Once he realized he lacked it, then he repented, came back to the Most High. There was a punishment for it, but he repented. Israel, like I said, we always lack discipline. We want to live how we want to live. We want to kick it. We want to get drunk, smoke weed, sleep around, you know, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We lack it. We lack it. Solomon lacked it, you know, at one point when it came to all of his wives and concubines, you know what I'm saying, getting off into idolatry and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? So like I said, everyone can slip. It's just us grabbing a hold of ourselves and bringing ourselves back, putting ourselves in subjection and disciplining ourselves. And like I said, not the discipline of chastisement, but disciplining ourselves to where we stay in order. You know what I mean? How do we do that? Let's go to Romans chapter 12. Oh, no, wait. You know what? I want one more in Peter. 1 Peter 5 and 8. Says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Now we know that being sober is of sound mind. If you are not of sound mind, see, so to be sober, calm, collected in spirit, temperate, you see what I'm saying? Circumspect, to be sober, right? Discreet, abstain from wine, you know, that's going into something else. But it says that if we're not, that our adversary, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeketh whom he may devour. If we cannot keep ourselves in order of sound mind or discipline, we'll lose the fight. We'll lose the battle. You know what I mean? And I don't think people think that far ahead, but you don't know you can lose the battle within a moment and you won't even know. You know what I mean? I told a brother one time, because he said he was losing the battle. You know, of course, spiritual battle. And I told him, you have to be equipped for the fight. If you're not equipped for the fight, you'll lose every time. You'll lose every time. You know, these are things that we have to keep in mind. You don't want the adversary to be able to take a hold of you because you're not of sound mind, or because you're not in order, or because you have no control or discipline over yourself. You see what I'm saying? You don't want to lose that way. Let me lose in the name of Yahushua. And even then, that's not a loss. You see what I'm saying? Now, this is how we start changing it, right? It's the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, right? Because us as Israel, we're separate. You know what I mean? We're separate. But be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. You see what I'm saying? So we gotta we gotta fall in order, man. And when we get in order, when we have that discipline for ourselves, we gotta try to fight to stay in that space. We gotta try to stay in that place, right? Gotta try to stay in that place. Let's go to the book of Psalms. I already said what Paul said about him bringing his body into subjection, which we need to do. You know what I mean? We need to do it. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 1 and verse 2. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice and judgment and equity, to give subtlety, I don't know how to say that, to the simple, to the young man, knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. To understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and the dark sayings. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. You see, all of these things, when it comes to wisdom, knowledge, instruction, if you are in order, you will be able to attain that. You'll be able to accept it. You'll be able to understand it. But if you're all over the place, how are you going to get understanding? How are you going to even know what the Most High wants? You can listen to a brother or sister tell you, yeah, you got to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. You know what I'm saying? You got to have faith in Yahushua. And that's it? You see what I'm saying? Or do you actually live a certain way? Do you actually take advice from someone? Do you take correction from someone? Can you put yourself in a boundary to where you're disciplined and to where you don't, I don't know, smoke weed, get drunk, fornicate? You know what I'm saying? Can you discipline yourself enough? You know what I'm saying? Like that? You know what I mean? Like, just because, and I tell people this all the time, just because you know you Israel, then what? Then what? That means you have a duty now. Now you have a way to live, and now you have a guideline. Now you have all these things. You see what I'm saying? So just because you know you Israel doesn't mean that's it. Nah. No. There's an outline to this. You see what I'm saying? Let's go to the book of Psalms 119 again. And verse 97. I believe. Psalms 119 and 97. Oh, how love I thy law. It is my meditation all the day. You see how you are going to overcome these things? See how you're going to start to become disciplined and be in order? Because the law is your guideline. This is your layout right here. You see what I'm saying? This is your layout right here. You know, some people I've heard people like, oh man, but I love pork. You know what I'm saying? But if you follow the law and you keep that discipline, then you're gonna know not to eat that. You're not gonna eat unclean things. You know what I'm saying? Because you didn't put your body in subjection. You see what I'm saying? Though through thy commandments hast made me wiser than mine enemies, for they are ever with me. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation. I understand more than the ancients because I keep thy precepts. I have refrained my feet from every evil way, that I might keep thy word. I have not departed from thy judgments, for thou hast taught me. How sweet are thy words unto my taste, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth. You see, so this is where you start. You know what I mean? This is where you start keeping the law. Because like I said, that the law is going to put you in order if you're following it. Just knowing the law is not knowledge without applying it means nothing. You see what I'm saying? Knowledge without applying it means nothing. All right. Let's go to Zechariah. Zechariah, chapter 8 and verse 16. Zechariah chapter 8, verse 16. These are the things that ye shall do. Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor. Execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates. And let none of you imagine evil in your thoughts against his neighbor. And love no false oath. For all these are things that I hate, saith the Lord. You see how important it is for us to be this way. You know what I mean? Because if you lack, like we're going over discipline and control, if you lack it, you're gonna think evil thoughts about your people. You know what I'm saying? Especially sisters. You know, sisters don't really like each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be funny, like they can't really be friends. They'd be like, oh yeah, forget her and them ugly shoes or whatever. You know, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like how our people think, you know, but it's just a lack. It's just a lack thereof. You know what I mean? It's just a lack thereof. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Right? Deuteronomy 28 and verse 15 says, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. You see, so our lack of order and discipline and following the Most High, look at the position that we're in now. Look at the position that we've been over all that time. You know what I'm saying? Over when we was in Persia and Mede and Assyria and Babylon and Rome, you know what I'm saying, and Greece. You know what I mean? Look at all the stuff that we used to do because we couldn't control ourselves. You know what I mean? Even when we was in the wilderness, we couldn't control ourselves, and we had Aaron make us a golden calf and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, we be slipping. You know what I'm saying? We be slipping. So, like I said, we need to get a hold of ourselves. Let's go Deuteronomy 30 and verse 15. See, I have set before thee this day life and good and death and evil. In that I command thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways. Like I said, that comes with discipline. A lot of people, I say this a lot, and y'all might have heard me say this. A lot of people don't follow the Most High because they think that he's going to take their fun away. A lot of people don't follow the Most High because he's not right in their face. That's where your discipline comes into play. And to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply. And the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whether thou goest to possess it. But if thine heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but shall be drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I denounce unto you this day that ye shall surely perish, and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land, whether thou passest over Jordan to go to possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice. Remember, I said part of this discipline is submission. Us obeying the Most High has to do with this. And that thou mayest cleave unto him, for he is thy life, and the length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to give them. You see, so we're understanding how we're supposed to fall in order. You know what I mean? It's going to be the law. The law is going to give you the outline, right? The law is going to give you the outline. Let me just get a couple more. Like I said, I don't want to take up all y'all time. Okay. This is 2 Peter 1 and 3. According as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and good and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these ye might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. And beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. For if these things be in you and abound, they make you that ye shall neither be barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach. You see what I'm saying? Like I said, all of this stuff goes together. A lot of stuff that they're teaching has to do with temperance and restraint and control and stuff, and and all those types of things. You see what I'm saying? So we really have to put and keep ourselves in order. Let's go to Romans chapter 6. Romans chapter 6 and verse 12 says, let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that ye should obey it in the lust thereof. Remember, James says we're tempted by our own lusts. Neither yield ye your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto God. Remember, yielding has to do with submission. You see what I'm saying? As those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto God. You see? So we are yielding, we're submitting to the Most High, right? And like I said, submission comes with all of those things. And we'll get one more, and then we'll call it one. Colossians 3. Colossians 3 and verse 5 says, mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. So it says to mortify them, right? It says to make dead, to put to death, slay, worn out, to deprive of power, destroy the strength of, right? So in order for you to make these things dead or put them aside, like I said, it comes with keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. So you put your body under subjection, and you discipline yourself. And, so the point is, we have to have self-discipline and self-control. You know what I mean? If we don't, we'll go off. It's really that simple. If we don't have self-discipline and control, we will go off. All right, and I'll end it right there. All right, So hopefully y'all were edified by that class. Hopefully everyone can discipline themselves or control themselves, restrain themselves, however you want to put it. All this, put yourself in order, all the same meaning. You see what I'm saying? So hopefully everyone could do that. You know, I mean, I know, like I said, it takes work. It takes work. So like I said, hopefully y'all were edified. If you have any more interest, you can contact us in Colorado, Lions of Israel, co@gmail.com, or you can go to LOI Detroit or Lions of Israel page. You know what I mean? Detroit is going to be having a class tomorrow for the Sabbath. Hit the like button, share, subscribe to all the channels for LOI. And with that, I will say shalom.
I want to praise you, Yahweh. I want to thank you, Yahweh. I'm so grateful, Yahweh. I want to thank you, Yahweh.
For the promises. Life is a blessing and life is a lesson. Life is a setback and life is progression. Life is uneasy at times, life is comfortable. Life will lift you up and at times, life will humble you. Life is a gift, you better thank the Lord for it. Every chance you get, someone is less fortunate. Life goes in circles, life throws you curveballs. Life can be deceiving like preachers in the church halls. Life isn't promised. If I could be honest, the fact that I'm alive, that time has me astonished. Cause I came from the underground, being tossed around, being lost and found. Now they adore the sound of the priest, far from a nuance. Verses are proverbs, writtens are the new songs. Another song for the blocks and the avenues. Everything is plain, I don't speak to them in
I want to
parables.
praise you, Yahweh.
I want to praise you.
I want to thank you, Yahweh. I'm so grateful,
I'm so grateful.
Yahweh. I want to thank you, Yahweh.
For the power, I see the world through different eyes. Every Sunday got the preacher telling different lies, hearing things that I really couldn't visualize. Should've listened, Big said you'd be hypnotized. I was a victim too, I say respectfully. They all up in the soup, don't know the recipe. Talking about I'm not who I was bred to be. Count me out, man, who made you the referee? Trying to get stripes, trying to cloud chase. At 19, I made an about face. Thanks to Christ, it's also about grace. And they lied when they said it ain't about race. But that's another song, I ain't the first to tell you. Woke up on a deeper and a surface level. Learned the laws and the laws changed my attitude. And the song is to show you how a gratitude. I'm so grateful.
I want to praise you, Yahweh. I want to thank you,
I want to thank you.
Yahweh. I'm so grateful,
We're so grateful.
Yahweh. I want to thank you, Yahweh.
Now let it ride.
I want to praise